Call the meeting to order. Please join me in the council prayer. Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Please join me now in honoring America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and again, good evening. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Milanazzo.
Here.
Councilor Murphy.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Councilor Caulfield.
Here.
Councilor Dakota.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Councilor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Mendonça.
Here.
Councilor Mercier.
Here.
9 yeas. Chair recognizes Councilor Rita Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week, I inadvertently omitted the following. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in darkened chamber for Donald Scott. Donald grew up in the Highlands section of the city and was educated in the local schools and graduated from Lowell High School in 1943. He immediately enlisted to serve with the United States Marines during World War II, serving in the Asiatic Pacific Theater. In 1945, he was involved in the Battle of Iwo Jima and was currently one of the last survivors of that conflict. After his honorable discharge, he returned to the Lowell area and made his home in Belvedere section of the city and was a communicant of the Immaculate Conception Church. Donald Scott was a former city councilor from 1976 to 1977. He also served as chairman and member of the Lowell Board of Health for 17 years and served on the Board of Catholic Charities. He is survived by his wife and 6 children, 12 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren, and we offer his family our sincere sympathy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Mercier. Anyone else? May we all rise in a moment of silence in darkened chamber? Thank you. May he rest in peace. First order of business is to accept the minutes of the City Council meeting held on October 18th and the Finance Subcommittee held on September 13th. So moved by Councilor Caulfield, seconded by Councilor Elliott. Councilor Mendonça.
If I could ask a question about one of the items,
Yes.
to you, to the manager, the solicitor, our motion about the opinion on the resumes, we didn't get that yet. I was just wondering if we could get an estimate of when we could expect that. Next week's meeting? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Moses was away last week, and he was involved in the process. In fact, he was the one doing the interviewing. So we've already had a conversation and to go over the process, and you'll have something in your packet.
The process?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
It all started part of the same thing.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Well, while we're bringing it up, I'm not sure what opinion we're looking for, because if you go on the guides to Massachusetts Public Records, it's very clear that this information is public. So I don't know why we need an opinion. I know we requested it, but if you look at the law, it's clear that this is public information, and the public is entitled to it. We're entitled to it. So I don't know why we didn't see the 7 or 8, whatever it was, resumes. So,
Councilor, what I had explained last week is that this was not a process that I was involved in. It was not one that I was familiar with. One of the things that I had noted last week was that I didn't know how many finalists, if there were finalists, and so those are the types of things that that Mr. Moses was involved in, and he was away last week. And those are the types of things that with respect to the state of the law, those are the types of factors that you would begin to consider in providing the council with the opinion. There's also other issues at play too, potentially, but that's one of the fundamental ones.
well, This is on the website, so everybody's entitled to it, and it's a pretty good read. It's a pretty easy read. It's clearly been adjudicated. These privacy exemptions have been adjudicated. This guide even cites multiple case law all the way up to the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court. And disclosure is required unless it serves to protect the government's ability to function effectively as an employer. I don't think releasing that information is going to affect the government's ability to function. So I would like that information. I would like to see who applied. Again, I said this last week, and I want to see why this individual was selected. I don't think that's to be measured against. I don't think that's too difficult to, I don't think we need an opinion for that. I don't think we need an opinion to release information.
I mean, that's something that was voted by the council to seek and request an opinion. And so that's what I intend to do.
Well, that's understandable, but the law is the law, isn't it, Madam Solicitor? We don't need an opinion to interpret the law.
The law is the law. I agree with that, yes.
Mr. Moses, what was the process? So we know, because you weren't here last week.
There was initial screening of resumes. I don't know off the top of my head, but it was something like 15 resumes. And I interviewed candidates and selected a single finalist and made a recommendation to the city manager.
How many candidates did you interview?
I believe it was 6. It might have been 5 or 6.
So those are the candidates that were selected from the initial pool that were finalists.
No, those were the ones that I interviewed.
So you only interviewed that one candidate that you selected. He was the finalist. What are you trying to say here?
I said exactly what I was trying to say. I interviewed 5 or 6 people. I don't remember which. I selected one finalist from that and made the recommendation to the city manager. The rest of the applicants that I didn't interview were not qualified.
Did you interview anybody from Lowell?
Excuse me?
Did you interview anybody from Lowell?
Yes.
You did? Okay. Well, my concern, because the individual who was selected, Mr. Moses, is from Groveland, which is where you're from Groveland.
Councilor Elliott,
Correct.
this is not on the agenda. This is, in my opinion, it's really getting into an area that it's a violation of the open meeting law. It's not on the agenda. I allowed Councilor Mendonça to ask a follow-up question from his motion of last week. So I'm going to ask you to stop the dialogue. We're waiting for a...
Mr. Manager, Mr. Mayor, I'm just interested in more open and transparent government. If you want to
not
shut
on the
me
agenda.
down...
It's a violation.
This was on last
If
week.
I-
We asked for an opinion. I don't
City-
think it should take a week to get a simple opinion about releasing information.
Madam Solicitor told you why, because Mr.
public
Moses
is
was
entitled
not...
to.
Mr. Moses was not here. I'm not disagreeing with you, Councilor Elliott, from the standpoint of getting the report from the solicitor's office, but this is not on the agenda.
It's by no, this is not a long opinion that we're looking for, and I'm sure it's by design that we're not getting the opinion in 1 week. So, and
I can't allow that.
my concern is this is a friend of Mr. Moses. He spent a week with him in South Carolina playing
I'm going to rule
golf.
you out of order, Councilor Elliott.
Is that correct, Mr. Moses?
Hold it.
So when I ask for resumes, I ask resumes to measure who is being selected, not someone's...
Councilor Elliott, you're out of order.
No, I'm not out of order.
You're clearly out of order.
Not only is there a question of order that has been trampled on thus far, but there's also a Plan E issue here. And at this point, I would say that the questioning is certainly getting into the area where the council clearly isn't
Madam,
allowed
just
to go.
next week, just give me the opinion.
You are questioning a hire now of the manager.
You're darn
And
right I
you
am.
also-
That's exactly what I'm
that's right.
questioning.
And that is something that is clearly beyond the scope of the council.
I'm
This is
entitled
not
to
your
public
hire.
information just
If I
like
could
the
finish,
people at home.
If I could finish.
No, because
This
you're
is
now
not-
way out of
this-
order.
I'm not. I was asked by the mayor to speak. I am in order. You are out of order.
Wait a minute, you weren't asked by the mayor, you asked the mayor to speak, and I'm entitled, look, I'm elected by the people, and if I want to ask questions about a personnel matter that affects the operation of the city, I'm entitled to it. The Secretary of State has
on the
issued an
agenda.
opinion on it.
Counselor Elliott, it's not on the agenda. It is not
Well,
on the
there's,
agenda.
there's many things at play, and I am well aware of
Wait,
what
wait,
is
is it on
issued
the
by
agenda or is it not on the agenda? You're
Not
going
on
to
the
gavel
agenda.
me
It's
down,
not
but you're
on the
not going to
agenda.
gavel
It
her
is
down?
not- It is not on the agenda. Move on. Next item, city manager communication, responses to council motions and requests. Anybody have any comments? Councilor Caulfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In all fairness, that was on the agenda last week. On the communications, I, for one, do not agree that Living Waters should be located at St. Anne's Church and the old cliche, location, location, location. But I'm concerned about a letter, and now, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the manager. Was a letter sent to St. Anne's Church, Mr. Manager, indicating that they would lose their funding?
No, there was not a letter indicating they would lose their funding. There was a letter sent that indicated that there were issues raised now by the change in use of the facility that was different than that was what was submitted to the Citizens Advisory Committee and to the City Council when we awarded money to that recipient. And so it brought into question whether, in fact, that would have any bearing on the award of the future award of that money, because it did change the prioritization of how that community development block grant money was allocated. But perhaps, and definitely more important, it raises questions as to whether it's a legal use of money under the federal regulations, because as we all know, there is the separation of church and state, and the use of the money for certain secular nonprofit uses, as was proposed, is not a problem. The use of the money for a religious organization, however, is problematic.
Well, Mr. Manager, the council voted for that funding. And if you're saying that those funds could be rescinded,
Correct.
this council is the one who dictates that. And let me finish. The funding was to provide new windows for the first Christian church in the city of Lowell. It's a historic building. Whoever goes into that gymnasium or whatever happens has nothing to do with the funding of those historic windows. Nothing. And I'm just fearful you're going to have the Justice Department down in this city or the federal government. And I'm not going to belabor the issue, but I don't like the city of Lowell sending out a threatening letter to someone that this council voted to fund that church for new windows.
Mr. Manager.
If I could just respond. Councilor, I agree completely that we don't want the Justice Department here in the city of Lowell questioning activities that we undertake. Your concern is that you believe that, well, I'm not sure what you think the Justice Department is going to come in and investigate. We're of the concern that the Justice Department will investigate the inappropriateness of using federal resources in violation of the U.S. Constitution and the Code of Federal Regulations dealing with housing and urban development funds.
Well, why was this brought before us in the first place? If there's a problem,
Well, Councilor,
granting a church money.
Councilor, I believe I already indicated to you this evening, if the money is being used for a secular purpose, if it's being used for to support the two organizations that are there that are not religious in nature, that is one thing. That is what we base that on. The family daycare, Acre Family Daycare, and the Merrimack Valley Housing Partnership were the tenants of that facility. We now have a religious organization that is utilizing the space, or potentially utilizing the space, and that causes problems for us in terms of the Code of Federal Regulations, which are drawn up in accordance with federal law, based upon the federal Constitution.
Mr. Manager, am I right in saying that the funding was to replace windows?
You are correct.
Windows.
You are correct.
So, I mean, what do the windows have to do with anything that goes on inside the church.
The money was granted for the benefit of the use of the space, not the windows.
The money was granted for the use of the space?
That's correct.
Well, if the city, this should have been handled in a very diplomatic way a month ago, when everyone heard that they were going to be moving in there. And it should have been handled in a very diplomatic way, Mr. Manager. And let me finish, I'm not done. And to bring this all about now, that the city's going to rescind the vote and take the money back, that's unheard of. And I'm not going to belabor the issue, Mr. Mayor, but there's other historic churches in Lowell that the city has granted money through community development grant funding and so forth. And I'm very troubled over this, very, very troubled. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Caulfield.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Mr.
In
Manager?
terms of the diplomatic nature of this, I think we've spelled this out in a number of times in a number of places through a number of avenues. When we learned of the possible move of Living Waters to the St. Anne's Church back in early September, we heard through the newspaper, and Councilor Elliott had a motion, and that's how we learned of this possible move. We reached out very diplomatically to our contacts at St. Anne's and indicated concerns, because we do have concerns about the use of that facility for that purpose. We were assured that we would be notified as we move forward as to what the final outcome was, or what the thought process was. I shouldn't say the final outcome, but the thought process was going to be with St. Anne's. That we were assured that there had been no decisions made. They were just in a talking stage just to see if it made sense for the church and Living Waters to have some type of partnership. We thank them for their willingness to work with us and keep in touch with us. We then learned a little over a week ago that the decision had already been made, that they hadn't reached a decision. We expressed concern to them that we had not been part of the process as we were told we were going to be. And we asked to meet with them and discuss the matter in more detail. And further, we asked that they not go out forward with a public announcement until we had an opportunity to talk about this. That was on a Friday. On, I believe it was Tuesday or Wednesday, a press release went out. We had a meeting scheduled for Thursday morning. So the press release went out before we actually had an opportunity to meet. We did meet. We expressed our concerns, and we expressed in particular the lack of communication that existed with St. Anne's and the city. As a result of that meeting, the Living Waters expressed a willingness to back away from a plan to move in November 1st. At first, we were told that there had just been a letter of intent, but that there was not a lease. We later learned, again through our discussions, that that letter of intent was pretty firm, and they were looking at November 1st. But they were willing to back off from that and work with the city on looking at some other options and discussing the use of the space and the operation. It was at that time that we indicated that, well, now that we're this far ahead on this, we should let you know that there is an issue with the federal money because the use had changed, and there is and there are legal questions as to whether it can be allocated to a religious organization. That's where we are with all of this. There was not a threat. I know it was characterized as a threat, but it's simply letting them know that there are issues that come into play here if they are going to move forward with this because of the use and because of the restriction on how that money can be used.
Councilor Caulfield, follow up.
I'll end this whole thing. Through the solicitor, and I made a statement that I don't agree that that facility be used for the drop-in center, whatever it might be. Legally, Madam Solicitor, this council can say we don't want them there, but legally we can't say they can't go there.
Right, I think I don't believe, and I haven't done any sort of exhaustive looking at this issue, but but I believe that's likely the case.
Thank you.
So I know there's two motions on the agenda tonight about this facility, and the council can say 9 yeas, we don't want it there. But the pastor of that church can say, you know what, they're going to go here. That's the democracy we live in,
That's correct.
okay?
Thank you. Counselor Elliott.
Thank you. While we're on the subject, I did file a couple of motions on it, but Mr. Manager, I was probably shocked, like everyone else, to see the notice in the newspaper, considering I filed the motion on the 13th, and we hadn't heard anything from you or your office. So when did you reach out? When did you finally speak to him, to I guess, Reverend Ennis? He indicated it wasn't until a month later, that was the first time that he had had any communication. So that's why I want to ask you as well. I had heard of a letter that was sent from Mr. Bakey, I think. So can you give us a chronology as to what, because I didn't see that letter. I didn't see anything from the time I filed the motion. You didn't indicate at the meeting that you were going to follow it closely.
Right.
So
We immediately, and I believe it was September 5th, September 6th, reached out to, as I said, to our contact at St. Anne's. We have a single contact, Mr. Lefferts, who, Lefferts? I'll let you, Lambert, I'm sorry. Yeah, if you want, Adam, if you want to respond to that.
As the manager indicated earlier, the entire city administration, including the planning department, learned of this proposal from the article that appeared in the newspaper, I believe at the end of August or beginning of September. The very first working day after we saw that article, we contacted Mr. Lambert, who is the representative from St. Anne's that we had contact information for because of the fact that they had previously applied for the Community Development Block Grant funds. That was the only contact we had with the church. So we contacted them immediately as soon as we learned of this and asked that, first, we wanted to confirm that whether what we were reading in the newspaper was actually even accurate, and they essentially assured us that no, it was a bit exaggerated, and in fact, they had not yet made any decisions whatsoever, even whether they were going to invite the Living Waters organization to negotiate with them the possibility of a lease. They further assured us that during that conversation that they would work closely with us and communicate with us as they continued to discuss it internally before they made any kinds of decisions. And we then used that information to respond to the motion that you made, Councilor, in September, to basically relay that information to the council. We relayed the information that we had learned of it through the newspaper. We relayed the information that we had had that communication with St. Anne's Church representatives. And in fact, we complimented them for their willingness to work with us and communicate with us, as well as the other interested parties. It isn't just the city. It's, in fact, there's a lot of interested neighbors, including their other tenants, some of the others with an interest in the downtown, the high school, and so forth. And we complimented them on the fact that they seemed willing to engage in what we consider to be a very constructive process with the community to sort of evaluate both whether this was a good idea or not, and if it ultimately was something they were going to proceed with, give everybody the opportunity to communicate about it, identify potential concerns, identify potential solutions to those concerns, allay fears, and so forth. We've employed that tactic very successfully with a number of other projects where initially there was some neighborhood and neighbor concerns about a particular use going into an area, and it's been very successful in the past. And again, we were looking forward to that process with the St. Anne's folks. We did indicate in that same response it was the response to the council motion that was included in council packets in September, that this change of use did indeed raise some questions and potentially jeopardize the CDBG funding. And as was discussed earlier, among other issues, then probably the most significant issue with that really is that it is not Living Waters, it is the Living Waters ministry. And because it is a ministry and because they profess to be a organization that it is about serving the homeless, but it is about serving the homeless with a religious mission. And that calls into question whether they are actually eligible for CDBG funding. And the issue, this is right out of HUD's guidance to the city, it says that CDBG funds can be used to acquire, construct, or rehabilitate buildings as long as the funds only pay the costs attributable to eligible HUD activities. And that was the reason that St. Anne's Church, obviously a religious organization, could potentially receive CDBG funds in the first place. And for a building that they did not use for religious purposes, they indicated. So under that, we would be allowed to use CDBG funds for that work. However, it goes on to say that HUD funds may not be used to acquire or improve sanctuaries, chapels, or any other room that faith-based entities use as their principal places of worship. And the question, and we didn't say the funds would necessarily be taken away, as has been reported. In fact, what we said is they may be jeopardized, because if they proceed with this, until we understand whether Living Waters ministry is using this facility as a place of worship in violation of the HUD rules, if they do, then they cannot use CDBG funds on that building. That is prohibited. If they do not, then that is not an issue. But we don't know that at this point, which is why we indicated in that September response that the funds may be jeopardized. And we forwarded copies of that response to the council. Obviously, we copied Mr. Lambert, who was our contact, and also the pastor of the church, Pastor Ennis, I believe. I've never actually spoken with him, and he's never contacted us either. We then, again, looked forward to having a useful dialogue and, again, that constructive conversation. However, we did not hear a thing from them until, as the manager indicated, last Friday. Mr. Lambert called me last Friday to inform me of two things. One, that they indeed were going to have Living Waters come in, and they were going to move in before the end of October. And the second thing was that they were planning to issue a press release to this effect. And what we indicated to them was that it seemed that was a little sudden, and we were wondering what had happened with the proposed dialogue that we were going to be having with them as they evaluated this and had more to report to us. We were concerned about that, and we said the first thing that really needs to happen, given that you've made this decision apparently, is we need to have a meeting with the public, with the various stakeholders who have an interest in this, and it would be advisable to have that meeting before you issue a press release about this, because I think that will cause a lot of people to, for lack of information about what is really proposed, draw some conclusions that may be detrimental to everybody involved and detrimental to the potential for a civil and reasonable dialogue. I left that conversation, again, with assurances from Mr. Lambert that he agreed and that would happen, and it was left to me to set up that meeting, which I did, for the first date that we could get everybody together, which was within a week of hearing of that. And in between that time, after he was aware that we'd scheduled the meeting, he proceeded to issue the press release. I can't comment on that. That's their decision. But that obviously created another level of kind of, I think, challenge, concern, and so forth. And that led to, I think, further challenges with this issue. Fortunately, I think we had while somewhat heated and somewhat contentious, I think we ultimately had a constructive meeting last Thursday. And I think we left that meeting with the sense that everybody, I think, felt that it was the beginning of an opportunity for a positive dialogue to pursue a variety of options as to what might be the best solution here. And then later that day, we received a phone call from the folks at Living Waters indicating that they agreed that it would be wise to take a pause and allow for some time to have the dialogue that, again, I think we all wished would have happened when it was originally promised, but it did not. And that's exactly where we are at this point. I have personally reached out to the folks at Living Waters and asked if they would invite me to come out to their facility to visit and get an understanding of what happens there and how it works. And obviously, we would continue a conversation with them about how best to serve the people that they serve and meet their needs in a way that works best for the city, but also and for the other stakeholders involved. And hopefully, we will continue forward on a positive footing from there.
Thank you, Adam. Does that answer your question, Councilor Elliott? Thank you. Any other comments on communication responses? Councilman Mendonça?
Yes, I'd like to thank the administration for responding to what I piggybacked on to Councilor Mercer's motion regarding West Third and Albion Street. I had asked specifically about West Third, which even though it was marked up, the opening permit was denied. But there are serious issues on Albion Street that they need put in a new gas main. That will be dug up, but they're gonna repave it curb to curb. I mean, some of this is just the residents' concern that seems wasteful, that just after repaving the street brand new, that they're gonna open it up and tear it up again. But we do offer these utility companies an opportunity to do that before the final paving. That was one of the reasons for the delays out in the Highlands of Parker Street in that area. But since this is serious, they are going to do it, but they will pave curb to curb, so it should be like new when they're finished. So thank the administration for the response.
Thank you, Councilman Donza. Anyone else on? Council Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There were a couple of responses to different motions that I had made. The first was a response to a motion looking into the well power program with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I appreciate the willingness of both the administration and Blue Cross Blue Shield to move forward with some additional ways to find some cost savings by really getting at the heart of the problem, which is the health of employees itself. And so I look forward to really seeing what the Blue Cross Blue Shield can come up with that maybe somewhat mirrors that program. But on another motion I had made on rental permitting, it is a significant public health and safety issue that we try and make sure that particularly in these times when more and more people are renting homes than are able to sometimes afford them, that we are making sure that they're up to the standards that we expect. And so while I understand that resources are scarce, I would look forward to that future report on how we might make sure that we really make those inspections in a way that maybe doesn't reach everybody, but sends a message to everybody throughout the community that they will be held accountable for those standards. So thank you.
Thank you, Council Murphy. Anyone else on? Councilor Elliott.
We received a communication, and this is not on the agenda, but it's a communication from your office, Mr. Mayor, relative to the clerk's applications that we received.
Yes.
And in light of the fact that we received them, I want to find out what the next step is in terms of timing and setting up meetings or interview, or what the process might be.
Right. I did want to get those out to my colleagues when I did receive them on Friday. We can do a couple of things. We can refer them to the Clerk Oversight Subcommittee, set up a meeting. It's not on the agenda for this Thursday, so it would be subsequent to that. Or if it's the wish of the council to go through the Personnel Subcommittee to, say, pick whatever we all agree on, be it 5 to 10 finalists to be interviewed, and then set up dates. So I guess that would be, I guess I would ask my colleagues what's the wish of the council as to how to proceed from here. Again, you all have the list of the names, and then you also received from the HR department, I believe, 15 names that they felt were most qualified based upon their review of the all 125 resumes. So again, it could go to the ad hoc Clerk Oversight Committee, or it could go to the Personnel Committee, or we could just do it as a committee of the whole and come back, say, with your top 5 choices or 6 choices, and I'm sure there'd be some overlap without getting into, say, interviewing 30 or 35 finalists. But so I guess what I would like to do is work with the HR department and the city solicitor and get back to the council.
So we're not going to get copies of all the resumes, we're just going to get copies of the top 15 they determined was, or,
Again,
I'm just asking.
Right, this, and that's a fair question, and this position obviously works for the city council. If you'd like all 125 resumes, I'd be happy to provide those, to you. But you now have the names, where they currently work, and their degrees, and where they live. You have all that information now. But if my colleagues would like the resumes, I can make arrangements to have them sent to you. Councilman Danza.
Well, related to that list, I would like the ones that weren't the preferred candidates to know of that list, which ones did not meet certain specifications of the job description. So rather than look at all of them, if there's some that just didn't meet the requirements, but then we don't need to look at those. But yeah, there are others that maybe wouldn't be as preferred as the 16.
Right.
But still met the requirements, and I may want to look at those. So
Okay.
I'd want the list broken down to give me a reason why they're not preferred. At least those that didn't meet the requirements. So
Okay.
we could at least whittle down the list to some extent. I'd be perfectly willing to do this as a committee of the whole or the personnel subcommittee.
Okay.
Seems more appropriate otherwise.
Okay. Again, and that does make sense, and I can have the HR department actually put together a report as to what criteria they use to whittle down, or to come up with the 15 or 16 names that they feel that should be looked at by the council. Council Martin?
Thank you.
Well, I was just going to suggest, what we've done in the past with, I think with the auditor and with the manager, is we have all met, and I think we picked a number, with a point system, we all voted on each one, and then the ones with the most points, the top 5 or something, got selected. So, but I think that needs to be the topic of maybe it was a separate meeting or a separate agenda item on the meeting.
I was planning to put it on the agenda for next Tuesday for discussion, so we would not have an issue. I mean, I understand I sent out this communication, but it was not
Right.
on the agenda.
In that, we've had all the resumes in the past in those processes, but, we're talking about 30, not 130.
125, right.
So, I do think, and that's just because that's how we did it in the past, may not be the best way or how we want to do this. But I think it's worthy of a discussion and maybe at least a separate agenda item that we can, just decide.
I will work with the HR department and the solicitor's office to have it on the agenda for next Tuesday. And if my colleagues want to see all 125 resumes, we can certainly make them available to be here that night. But I will certainly have all of the 15 or 16 finalists, I will have those available for all of you to look at. But I will have the 125 here that night.
So should we use a similar process? Maybe you're right, maybe it's not the best that we used in the past, but that we look at X amount of resumes, narrow it down, and based upon the number of votes that a particular candidate gets, that's how we go through the interview process?
I would say that makes
I
sense.
think that's a good idea.
Okay, fine. Thank you. We'll have it on for next Tuesday. And I want to thank the HR department for their good work and putting this information together. And like I said, I wanted to make sure that you all had it as soon as I had received it late. I actually received it late Friday. Anything else on communications? Councilor?
I know, I just noticed, I just forwarded the email to Councilor Dakota, and Councilor Caulfield hasn't seen his communication, so maybe we can get him a hard copy.
He does have a hard copy.
Oh, he does.
Yeah, we left it on his desk, and Councilor Dakota, we did send it to her. You didn't receive it? Okay,
She wasn't on the list.
okay.
She has it.
I'll make sure you get it. Thank you. Anything else on the communications? Hearing none, motion to accept the communications placed on file by Councilor Elliott, second by Councilor Dakota. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. It's public hearing time. We do have 2 public hearings this evening. The first one is an ordinance quarterly traffic. Let me give the second reading. In City Council ordinance, an ordinance amending the new code of ordinances for the City of Lowell, with respect to Chapter 266 thereof entitled Vehicles and Traffic. Public hearing is now open for those wishing to speak in favor. For those wishing to speak in favor, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Those wishing to speak in opposition, in opposition, the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council?
Move for approval.
Move approval by Council Caulfield, second by Council Mercia. Question?
Mr. Mayor, through you to the city manager, we did have some discussion before this went into a public hearing a week or two ago about Elm Street. And Mr. Manager, you said there'd be a correction in there about, because remember how they said no parking at all on Elm Street? We went to a meeting one morning very early in the St. Anthony's Parish. People were there complaining about why we won't have any place to park on Elm Street, and so, I don't know, I don't have a revised copy, so I have just the old one. We're gonna do something about Elm Street?
Yeah, there is a change on Elm Street, but in fact, it actually reduces the amount of Elm Street where parking is prohibited. It doesn't increase the amount where parking is prohibited. There apparently is an ordinance on the books that prohibits parking on the south side of Elm Street from Gorham Street to Central Street, and we basically are revising it to exclude a section between Gorham and Linden Street. So you will be able to park in areas that technically are on the books now that you can't park. So in fact, while it does refer to a section of Elm Street where parking is prohibited, it is a description that is actually less than the area where it's currently prohibited, and this is
Well,
a
when
housekeeping
those
matter.
back central neighborhood people call a meeting next time, I'm gonna send you there in place of us, because I think they're gonna be outraged.
Well, we can certainly talk about it, but again, I think what we're doing here is actually increasing the available legal on-street parking in back central, not decreasing it.
Well,
As a result of this
Elm
change.
Street people aren't gonna be so happy about decreasing it there.
Now, again, we are, maybe I'm being not clear in the
So I
language.
don't-
We are making parking legal in places on Elm Street, where presently the ordinance prohibits it.
Okay, so,
I think it's a housekeeping matter more
okay,
than
so
anything.
where do we see that?
The ordinance today prohibits parking on Elm Street on the south side, all the way from Gorham Street to Central Street.
Okay,
This, among the many other things that are in the quarterly traffic ordinance, is deleting that. So we are restoring parking.
okay, you're restoring it.
Correct.
We
That's the
are-
word I'm looking for, restore.
But there is a section that we are proposing to keep parking prohibited.
But you
But it's a
are,
smaller section than what is prohibited
okay,
today.
good. So we are allowing some parking on Elm Street.
We are, yeah,
We're
in fact,
restoring
we are,
it.
as a result, if you vote the ordinance as currently written.
Okay.
Parking will be legal in more portions of Elm Street than it is today.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know, thank you.
Council Martin?
I guess I will attend the meeting next time.
Right. What's going to be prohibited is from Linden Street to Central Street, which is the section near the courthouse, right? That one block. Now, the south side of the street, I think, is the side opposite the courthouse. But that's all. And the rest of Elm Street from Linden Street south on that side, you'll be able to still park. Right.
Okay.
According to
good.
this.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion that's been seconded. Roll call.
Yeah, I'll second,
Oh,
yeah.
Roll call.
Mayor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Murphy?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Dakota?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça?
Yes.
Councilor Mercia?
Yes,
9 yeas.
Thank you. The next public hearing is an order of taking Reeder Street Extension, second reading. Order of taking and acceptance of Reeder Street Extension to take by eminent domain in fee a certain parcel of land in the city of Lowell for municipal purposes, to wit, the layout and acceptance of Reeder Street Extension and other municipal purposes associated therewith. The public hearing is now open for those wishing to speak in favor. In favor? In favor. That portion of the public hearing is closed. Those wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council? Move approval by Council Mendonça, seconded by Council Caulfield. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mayor Milonazo,
Yes.
Councilor Murphy,
Yes.
Councilor Broderick,
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Dakota.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott,
Yes.
Councilor Martin,
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça,
Yes.
Councilor Mercier.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. The next item under City Manager, in City Council order pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinance of the City of Lowell concerning Section 266-6 thereof entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations, Temporary Traffic Regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days, whereas the City of Lowell desires to make temporary rules regulating traffic under actual conditions for a period of 60 days, and whereas Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinance of the City of Lowell, Section 266-6 thereof entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations authorizes the City Council to make such temporary rules for a period not to exceed 60 days. Now therefore be it ordered, adjudged, and decreed by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows. Effective immediately for a period of 60 days thereafter, the following temporary traffic regulations shall be implemented. Section 266-55, parking for handicapped persons, elderly drop-off zones. C, in order to accommodate the needs of handicapped persons, there are hereby set aside and reserved for persons having V or HP license plate, as well as temporary handicap parking permits. The following parking spaces is hereby amended by adding the following. 5th Street, number 57 on the south side, beginning at a point 163 feet east of the easterly curb line of Reed Street, running easterly on 5th Street for a distance of 20 feet. There's no objection. Second reading by title in City Council order pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances in the City of Lowell concerning Section 266-6 thereof entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations, Temporary Traffic Regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. What's the wish of the council?
Move
Move
approval.
approval by Council Mercia, seconded by Council Murphy. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mayor Milonazo,
Yes.
Councilor Murphy,
Yes.
Councilor Broderick,
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Dakota.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott,
Yes.
Councilor Martin,
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça,
Yes.
Councilor Mercier.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. In City Council vote, authorizing the city manager on behalf of the City of Lowell to accept a gift of $1,700 for use by the City of Lowell Pollard Memorial Library. Whereas the Pollard Memorial Library Foundation Incorporated desires to donate the sum of $1,700 to the City of Lowell Pollard Memorial Library, and whereas the City of Lowell desires to accept the gift of said funds to put towards equipment needed for a low-vision workstation at the Pollard Memorial Library, now therefore be it voted that the city manager be, and he is hereby authorized in the name of the City of Lowell to accept a gift of $1,700 for use by the City of Lowell Pollard Memorial Library pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A. Be it further voted that we, the members of the City Council of the City of Lowell, jointly and severally, do hereby commend and officially extend the gratitude of the City of Lowell to the Pollard Memorial Library Foundation Incorporated for their generosity displayed through the donation of the aforesaid funds to the City of Lowell. Second reading by title. In City Council vote authorizing the city manager on behalf of the City of Lowell to accept a gift of $1,700 for the use by the City of Lowell Pollard Memorial Library. Wish of the council.
Move approved.
Move for approval by Council Caulfield, second by Council Martin. Roll call.
Mayor Milonazo,
Yes.
Councilor Murphy,
Yes.
Councilor Broderick,
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Dakota.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Martin,
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça,
Yes.
Councilor Mercier.
Yes.
Thank you. Subcommittee reports. I know we had an Economic Development Subcommittee this evening. The chairman is Council Martin. Chair recognizes Council Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The subcommittee met in response to a few motions filed by Councilor Murphy, one related to potential changes in zoning regulations to encourage home-based businesses to allow for job growth, and the second related to certain policies and guidelines surrounding the implementation of tax increment financing or TIF agreements. The members of the committee, myself, Councilor Dakota, Councilor Murphy, Councilor Broderick, all were present. I know, Mr. Mayor, you were present, Councilor Mercier and Councilor Mendonça were also there, and I think Councilor Caulfield came in toward the end. As regards the zoning regulations, there are certain provisions in current zoning that allow for home-based businesses some sense that perhaps those may be too restrictive. As with the advance in technology, it's more and more likely and more common for people to be able to work out of their home. And we want to encourage that to the extent it doesn't impact the neighborhood and those businesses potentially grow and prosper and then expand beyond the home. On the other hand, there's, people, we need to be sensitive to residential areas. We don't want a lot of businesses with in and out traffic and things like that. So the subcommittee voted to have Mr. Bakey's staff kind of circulate some bullet points as to what features of modified zoning in this regard would be, and then circulate that list to as broad a list of stakeholders as possible, certainly members of the planning board and members of neighborhood groups, and any other, maybe Chamber of Commerce or any other interested parties, before we got into drafting any sort of amendment to try and just solicit feedback on what might be desirable in a set of zoning amendments and what, where we should steer clear of because it would impact the neighborhood. So the committee voted to adopt that, and we will await a report back from DPD after they, are able to compile a list and solicit input. So that will come back in the future, but it's probably a longer term item at this point. The second topic we discussed was, TIF agreements that we have. Did get a report from the manager last month, and then a report also in August about the status of various TIF agreements. The meeting did run a little long, and so we did not get into too much of that. We did hear a report from DPD that based on a number of the concerns raised in Councilor Murphy's original motion on that they've adopted some new policies and guidelines in awarding TIF agreements. But we decided to continue that discussion in a future meeting of the committee, both to understand those changes in more detail and see what else we might want to offer. Some of the things, for example, that the department has adopted is, that an applicant now needs to demonstrate consistency with the master plan, which parts of their proposal are helpful with the master plan, which parts of their proposal impact the surrounding neighborhood, both good and bad. And really the big issue in all of these is job creation and what types of jobs they're going to create. And that's really where we just started to get into, we're talking about that we get numbers of jobs and job creation, but we don't get, wage levels or benefit packages. We really want to encourage, strong paying jobs for Lowell residents in some of these agreements. So that's going to be the topic of a further meeting as soon as we can get it scheduled. And I invite any of the members of the committee who want to weigh in.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion by Councilor Murphy amending the zoning so people could create a business in their home. I need more clarification on that. What type of business?
Right.
I mean, this is a can of worms here. And it's one thing for someone to do accounting or tax work in their home. It's another thing for a hair salon. So you're talking about traffic, parking, etc. So is this coming up for vote tonight, or you're going to bring it back later?
No, it's coming back later. We're going to get a report from the Planning and Development.
You definitely have to have some clarification on this motion.
Councilor Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Probably reviewing the video of the actual subcommittee in its entirety will be a bit more revealing in that way, because we are going to, based on the vote of the subcommittee, have Adam Bakey draw up a number of different recommendations and submit that for comment from a number of neighborhood groups and the planning board as well as the council. But as Mr. Bakey noted, it's about striking the right balance between protecting our neighborhood character, but also making sure that we do provide opportunities for economic growth, because not every instance of economic growth is going to come from these TIF plans. We only have about 10 active plans right now. It's going to come in many different ways, from drawing upon much smaller companies, so that in the aggregate you are actually building a sustainable economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Watching the video, I don't need to watch the video. I was watching it at home, and it's not going to reveal anything to me, because while the motion, I think it's a good idea, and I understand that we're in a digital age and we're trying to foster growth of businesses. I just don't think it's a good idea, and I'm not going to support it going forward, because I sat on the subcommittee and back in 2004, and for years before that listened to complaints from neighborhood groups that were concerned about a whole host of things that I think we did a very good job in addressing back in 2004. And I listened to Mr. Bakey, and he was correct. There are some strict regulations in place regarding businesses in neighborhoods, and to me, they're in place for a reason. There is a process that allows for an exception to through the special permit process, and it was put in place for that particular reason. So I think the zoning that is in place right now is good zoning. A lot of time, a lot of effort went into putting that zoning in place, and again, there was a provision, a special permit provision, but there's a reason why there are business zones, because we don't want businesses in the neighborhoods, whether it's one car or two car, whether it's an attached building or not attached building. So I think it was I think it's well-intentioned, but there are regulations, and they are strict, and for a reason. Prior to that, these things can sprout up everywhere, and it's a Pandora's box, in my opinion. So, again, I'm not going to support the motion, not because I don't want to explore it, because I just don't think it's a good idea to allow businesses in residential neighborhoods when we specifically set up residential and business zones for a reason. Traffic, parking, all of the issues that go along with setting up a zoning code. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Martin.
Yep, just to be clear, that, and there are certain businesses that are allowed in homes today as of right. There are others that require special relief, special permit. So I think the vote or the charge of the subcommittee was to see if that balance is still where it needs to be in light of changing technology and changing nature of work. So I don't think any of us want to see businesses that generate traffic, for example, but web designers, and there's a whole host of other things that haven't existed in 10 years ago. So I think we're all very cognizant of the concerns of neighborhoods. It's specifically why the committee wants to solicit input from neighborhoods, and I know there are members of the planning board who are going to have very strong feelings about this. So I think we're all aware of the potential pitfalls here. On the other hand, everybody wants to encourage economic development, and we're just trying to make sure we have the right balance. So this is going to be a very slow and cautious approach, and due regard will be given to protection of all neighborhoods in the city.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you. I think Councilor Martin just hit on what I was going to say, but the motion was to have Mr. Bakey come back with some general points as to what we might consider, and it's going to go to the planning board and also to neighborhood groups. One of the concerns that I raised and other councilors also raised was it sounds nice to increase our tax base and bring jobs in, but bringing it into residential areas is always a concern. So it's not something that we're proposing to change or approve tonight. It's really the gathering of information to see if we are still at the balance point. what was done in 2004. We've seen tremendous changes in technology between scanners and computers and I guess occupations in general. So people work more remotely, and there could be opportunity here. Having said that, one of my concerns was when he mentioned that they picked, I forget, but I was basically differentiating between geography in terms of have they picked certain spots in the city where they think it's applicable or might be applicable, and it was really different, maybe different areas that we could improve or expand it, but not necessarily geography-wise in the city. And I think that's something that we have to look at and talk to the neighbors in the neighborhood groups to find out where it might fit. And it may not fit at all, but I think that it's a good motion to at least look at and see if there's a way to benefit from the change in technology.
Thank you. So again, I believe the motion before the full board would be to accept the report of the Economic Development Subcommittee as a report of progress, and we're going to be getting a lot of information back from the Planning and Development Office on that one specific issue, and then the other two motions will be taken up at a subsequent Economic Development Subcommittee meeting. So motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
No.
No. We have 8 yeas and 1 no. Thank you. Any other subcommittee reports? I know that the clerk ad hoc committee is meeting Thursday, correct? Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
just some clarification. This is going to eventually come back for a vote
Oh, absolutely.
by the council.
Oh, absolutely,
That's
correct.
when I'll,
Absolutely. As Councilor Broderick indicated, it's really information gathering at this point from a lot of different sources. Moving on under general petitions, we have 3 claims for property damage. Motion by Councilor Murphy, seconded by Councilor Martin to refer to the law department. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed to vote. We have a miscellaneous petition by Catherine Coulomb from 17 Ralph Street. Request handicap parking sign. Referred to the traffic engineer by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Caulfield. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Moving on to the motion section of the agenda. I believe we have 12 motions this evening. The first one by Councilor Mercia. Motion, City Council requests the city manager have the proper department install no parking here to corner on Andrews Street at Moore Street. Seconded by Councilor Martin. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think there is some sort of an ordinance in the city that says that you can't park like 20 feet from here to corner. However, people don't really realize that, and I'd like to, this motion is like to ask if we could actually put a physical sign that says no parking here to corner. I heard from residents of that Andrew Street that says that the fire department having a hard time to turn in that neighborhood when there's cars on the corner. So if we could just signify it with a
sign.
With a sign, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Next motion by Councilor Mercia. Motion, City Council requests the city manager have the land and buildings repair the hole in the roof on the Shed Park Pavilion left side. Second by Councilor Broderick. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week, we were at a forum, and one of the questions was directed towards me, and rightfully so. I was thrilled to get it because the question was some sort of question as to, are we responsible for maintaining what we own? And of course we are. Having said that, there was a big hole like about this size, and you could see right up to the sky. And so it's a beautiful facility, and I wish that we could have someone from Land and Buildings go over and just patch it up, because we should maintain that which we own, and I said that I'd make a motion, so here it is.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed is the vote. Next motion by Councilor Mercia. Motion, City Council requests the city manager provide a report of progress, timeline, etc. of the previous proposed hotel near the Songus Arena. Seconded by Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some time ago, we had we had a mechanic building there where we were repairing vehicles from the, city cruisers and fire apparatus and things, and we did decide in a timely fashion to move it somewhere else. Having said that, I thought there was part of an agreement with then Chancellor Marty Mann to put and erect a hotel there. Do we know what the plans are for that particular site? I know that there was $800,000 involved, and I thought that the congressman said that it would generate taxes, and he would have, it was almost like he promised us that he needed that portion of the land, and he would make sure that it would become part of the city tax base. So I'm asking through this motion, what plans are I'd like a report of the specific vital plans for that area. And if, because if we would have some revenue, that would be good. I know that it would be a good place for it. So that's exactly the gist of this motion, because I think for a while now we've forgotten about it, and I really didn't want to forget about it.
Thank you. Mr. Manager?
Well, if I may, we'll get you a report, we'll get the council a report if it's so voted. But just by way of explanation on this, as you recall, that was a parcel of land that had been targeted some time ago for the possibility of a hotel or some type of commercial venture. We thought a hotel would work quite well there. And it was sort of a key part of our negotiations with regards to the arena, because we did have a development company that was interested in putting a hotel there that expressed some interest, we'll put it that way. Nothing was certainly in stone, but they did Frontier Development. I believe they were a Denver-based company, wanted to look at that for a hotel, and we raised that issue at the time of the negotiations regarding the arena. And it was decided that we would move forward with the sale of the arena and this parcel to the university, not to the chancellor, to the university. And but part of the agreement was that, in fact, a reuse or a committee would be set up with representation from the city as well as from the university, with obviously the university having a greater share of the votes. But that group has met over the course of the last couple of years and developed a concept of what both parties would like to see at that site. The primary or preferred use is a hotel. We need a hotel in the downtown area, and we think that would be a very good site. It would complement the arena. Ultimately, the decision, though, to when to put that on the market is left to the university. The Chancellor and I have talked about this, and he's of the opinion, and I concur, that when we go out and put this out, or when the university chooses to put this out, it really should be at a time when there's a market. We don't want to go out and put this, or have the university put this out for sale and not have the requisite amount of interest. We want to make sure that there's competitive bidding for this, and that in fact there is someone that wants to come forward and put a hotel. To just put it out when the economy is not particularly good could result in no proposals, or a proposal that we really aren't interested in, which then put us in an awkward situation. So it's ongoing. Each time we meet, we talk about that piece of property. Again, we think it would be a hotel, or would really be the best use for that site.
That committee is in place still, right?
That's correct.
So we don't have a timeline on any development or any plans?
Not at this time. Not at this time.
Because I know...
Ultimately, it's up to the university because it's their property.
I know, and it makes me nervous to see them building all over the place. By the time they're done, they won't have any money to build over there.
Well, keep in mind, it's not the university money that's going into this. This will be a private development that would be coming in to put a hotel there, or some use. We'd like a hotel.
Yeah, we would, because I'm concerned about it, because I hear through the Convention and Visitors Bureau that when events come into the city and they sell out and they fill the Courtyard Marriott, the rest of the people go into the suburbs, and I don't want them to go to Tewksbury to Holiday Inn. I want them to come and spend that money here and be closer to the restaurants that are in our city, and I don't want them traveling too far.
Counselor, I couldn't agree more. If you recall, that was an issue that I raised at the time of the negotiations, that we wanted to make sure that and you know, I don't want to go back in the past here, but that's our goal, is to get a hotel there.
If the congressman, if the chancellor would own this property and put it out to development, how would the city generate any thing?
We would generate the tax revenue. The tax revenue, the rooms tax, the meals tax, assuming there's
That wouldn't go to the chancellor or the?
No.
All right, so that's.
He may try, but
So we need to do it. We need to be vigilant on that. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Next motion by Councilor Elliott. Motion, City Council vote to oppose expansion of homeless services by Living Waters downtown. Second by Councilor Broderick. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a Christian. I'm a Catholic. I went to Catholic school. I have volunteered hundreds of hours for my church and other churches, religious organizations. I've gone to nursing homes, St. Vincent de Paul. I've worked in soup kitchens. So the intent of this is not that I don't appreciate. I tried to go to Living Waters twice today. They were closed both times. Just to see their operation. I've seen their website, and they do good work. I'm not questioning the work that they do, and I don't think anybody is, quite frankly. The concern is just the proximity to the high school, the downtown, and the effect that would have on well over 3,600 kids that are downtown, as well as the downtown businesses. So I don't want to come off as if I am not empathetic and to the people that are less fortunate, because I'm not. And that's not what this motion is about. The motion is just to send a message, because I received yet another email just late this afternoon that this project is moving forward, and that contradicts the statements that Mr. Bakey made, or this sentiment that he got from the meeting. So I just think it's important that we're clear that it's not that we don't appreciate or welcome their services in the city, as we have with so many others, that we just don't think as a body, whether it's, and I have another motion on, and maybe the answer's already been questioned relative to zoning. I just think we need to make it clear that we appreciate it, but this location downtown and its proximity to the high school and the library and so many other things is not the best fit. So that is the purpose of it. I know there's another motion on it, but I really would like to have this motion taken by itself, and the other one taken, Councilor Broderick has a motion on, and I think we just have to be clear and take a position on this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Elliott. Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the motion. You know, I agree with a lot of the sentiments expressed by Councilor Elliott. But I do think it's, and to be clear, I was on the radio this morning, and I said I thought, you know, that people were getting dug in and taking firm positions that are going to be difficult to back down from. But after hearing Mr. Bakey's report tonight, the assurances that seem to be conveyed that then, weren't followed through on are certainly troubling. And I think it's possible to support all these motions. And if I could explain at least my rationale, I do think some of the statements that have been made publicly about this have been over the top. And I do hope there's an opportunity for dialogue and to reach a compromise on this. And I do think there is such an opportunity, despite what's been said to date. And there really may be no role for the council here ultimately in the end. But I also think it's important that the council go on record. I mean, we have the two major business organizations in the city opposed to this. There are concerns about, I think, just its proximity, you know, to the real heart of the downtown. And so I don't think any of us are opposed to, you know, working with homeless. I mean, some of the comments in the paper about the city does nothing for homeless people. I mean, we spend close to $1 million a year in community development block grant money, $2 million. You know, there's a staff person at DPD dedicated to working on homelessness issues. So I think it's unfair and wrong to say that the city is ignoring the plight of the homeless. That doesn't mean we need to support every initiative that comes up. And this just seems to be the wrong spot for this location. Now, if ultimately we don't have control over it, then we don't. But I think it is important for the council to be heard on things of such importance in the heart of the central business district of the city. So I think you know, the motion is well-intentioned and thought out and not, you know, not anti-homeless or mean-spirited in any way. This is an important issue for all the residents of Lowell, and I think for that reason I plan to support it.
Thank you. We do have someone registered to speak on the motion, Mr. Goldman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of the Lowell City Council, Mr. Manager, staff. My name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. And I agree that the council should oppose this. One of the things that concerns me is that the city is concerned about the homelessness issue. I mean, the manager a few years ago established, you know, a committee to have a 10-year homelessness plan drawn up, and I don't know how far that's gone, but the city is concerned about it. This is just the wrong location, and if I just might, so I don't have to get up again, the second motion of the Councilor Elliott, I also support, and as well as Councilor Broderick, with just an amendment that maybe the Downtown Neighborhood Association should be included in with the downtown businesses and with the St. Anne's Church meeting with the manager to discuss this, because I think the residential association would be concerned about this as well. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Mark. Anyone else on the motion? Councilman Donza?
I would probably be in a minority on this, but I'm not ready to go on a record being in opposition to this, mainly because I don't know enough about Living Waters, how they run their program. Have there been any issues with their program? I'm just concerned that some of this is, we were all aware of things that had happened at the homeless shelter on Middlesex Street and some of the bad, negative things that have happened there. And up until this came up, I hadn't heard of Living Waters. I haven't heard of any issues going on there, so I don't know if those negative things will occur. I'd really like to learn more about Living Waters and their program and what they want to do, because it seems like what they're doing is laudatory in that they're trying to help the homeless. And I guess St. Anne's Church may be trying to do the same thing by allowing them the use of that. So I cannot yet support this motion to oppose that expansion without knowing more about the program, knowing if there are any negative impacts that, or things that have happened that are negative to the community. It could be that this could be a help. They're giving the homeless something to do during the day. Otherwise, where would they be? Out on the streets. I don't know. So I'm not going to support the motion because I'd like to learn more about this program. And to that end, if there's anything that can do to educate us about Living Waters program and anything that the police may have as to what is going on with the program, that would help me understand it better going forward. But I'm not yet ready to support this because of that. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll have a roll call vote on the motion then. Council Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I asked the solicitor earlier this evening. The majority of the council can oppose Living Waters moving into St. Anne's Church. That's all we can do is oppose. Legally, we can't say, no, you can't move there. Am I right, Madam Solicitor?
Again, that is my understanding. It's not an issue that I have, again, studied extensively. But yes, it's my understanding that the city would not have any sort of siting requirements that it would need to approve and things of that nature.
Legally, they can move in there. We can oppose it, but we can't stop them.
Correct.
Council Mercia, then Council Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very difficult situation because I know we're all sympathetic to the people that are less fortunate than ourselves. There's no doubt about that. The homeless, the hungry, the way the economy is now. People are not all drug addicts. People are without a job. I have sympathy for these people. And the way that I see it, and I know that the majority of people do not want it there. They did a question of the day in the Sun the other day. 85% of the people called in and said, no, it doesn't belong there. Is that service needed in the city? Absolutely needed. Yes, it is needed. In that location, in the heart of the downtown where we're trying to revitalize it, and people are coming forward to open up businesses and sacrifice and put their money and their time and their sweat into a business, only to have the less fortunate right next door. It's like oil and water almost, and you're right near a school and things. But as Councilor Caulfield said, there's really nothing we can do, similar to if a group home is going up in a neighborhood. There's really not anything that we can do there as well. So I would take the roll call vote, and I would vote in support of the motion. However, I think there needs to be a policy established that if the worst-case scenario is that they don't even listen to us, then what policy could we put in place to enforce the people to adhere to the rules that are set forth? For example, there's a business, and I'm not going to name it. I like to go into this business, but every time I go to that business, there's someone there saying, you got $1, you got $1, and I'm going broke just giving out dollars. So instead of saying no, I just avoid that business. That's not fair to that business, that because of that situation. So I understand both sides of this issue, but I will say that I think it's going to happen. I don't know. Maybe the motion will help, but I think the priest is doing his job. He's opening up this facility, perhaps for the money that they probably need in the church, but to offer a service that is available to keep these people off the street. So we could have a situation and look at it a different way and say, you know what, they're going to be downtown anyway without a job, without money, and they could be hanging around in doorways. This will at least give them recreation off the street and into the facility, unlike the shelter that keeps you there overnight and sends you out into the street at 7. This place is that drop-in center, and drop-in centers are for the Boys and Girls Club age children, the UTEC with the older group. Look at it as a different age group that have a problem that need help. Society is such in a way that they close the doors to the mental health facilities, and they put these people out on the street without anybody monitoring their medication, and they're out in the street to fend for themselves and getting into trouble. And to push them aside, I think it's going to be there. If it is, we have to make the most of it and try to work together and establish a policy and enforce it to make sure that these people are, there's a guideline there. maybe we can all work together. I know that on this particular street, and I'm going to name the street, in Sedalia Drive, many years ago, they put a group home there with mentally challenged people, and the uproar was deafening. It was unbelievable, and we attended meetings day after day to try to make both sides understand each other. They turned out to be the best neighbors you could ever have, and I never heard any more after that. So the concept probably is, oh my God, not here, but maybe if we, and I'm not saying his motion isn't going to help, but, and I will support it, but I think we can work together. I think that, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I have compassion, but I always look at the good side of it, and I think that maybe we have to adapt to it and help. Do you want them on the street in your doorway panhandling, or do you want them in there? It's like saying to the skateboarders, get off the plaza, get out of the JFK Plaza. Well, find me a place. So we did, and it kind of solved itself. And maybe this is a bad omen that's going to turn into something good. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at this way. Maybe it can be, we got to take something new, and we got to try to understand it.
Council Elliott, then Council Murphy.
That's okay, Mr. Mayor. I was going to speak to the issue of zoning, but I'll speak to it on the next
Okay,
motion.
thank you. Council Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly understand the concerns here, but I think as a course of action that the motion 14 is the wiser course, because there really does need to be more dialogue. I don't know enough about living waters to make a decision one way or the other. I do appreciate Councilor Mendonca's comments that if we could have some reports and input as far as what kinds of things they are planning to do and what their record has been in the past over at West Adams Street. I think that would be more helpful. But to begin a conversation by saying no, I'm not sure how productive that will lead to further conversation. And if it is the case that they move there anyway, how will our relationship with them as a city will be able to make sure that something like the project that Councilor Mercia mentioned isn't a negative impact on the neighborhood. But it could also be, as I say, by approving this motion, it could reinforce everything that's been going on there anyway, and you might not get the result that the intent of the motion is calling for. So I think there really does need to be more information and more dialogue around that.
Thank you. Anyone else on the motion? Council Elliott.
I'm not sure what other information we can give. The manager has met with them. All you have to do is go to their website, and you can see what the services that they provide and who they provide to. And they're going to expand those services downtown. So I welcome more information, but what other information do we need? They said they're expanding their services to people that are homeless. This came up a month ago, actually longer than a month ago. It was September when it was brought before this council, and the manager started meeting with the individuals. If you wanted to know, you had plenty of time. It's just right down on West Adams Street. They're open all kinds of hours, and we're at the point where they're proceeding. They sent the press release saying that they are proceeding. So I think this motion is timely, and it's important that we take a stand, but I don't know what other possible information people need to make a decision whether this is an appropriate location or whether it's not. And that's why I filed the motion, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councilor Dakota.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I feel like I need to speak on behalf of the business owners downtown And I'm somewhat surprised to be voting or speaking in opposition to any type of homeless shelter. I feel very strongly about our obligations to support those in need and in transition. And most people in the city know that I currently employ and have employed for 8 years many, many residents and former residents of the homeless shelter. So I understand the moral obligation that Living Waters has and that St. Anne's have, but I just want to talk about a little bit about the obligation, the moral obligation the businesses have, because they're nervous, and this particular facility is making them nervous that they can fulfill their moral obligations. So the 3 that we have are to keep our staff employed, give them the jobs that we have promised them, to repay the generosity of the people who have believed in us and our concept in the city of Lowell as we opened our businesses, and to, when they are ready, to employ the people who are transitioning out of the homeless shelters and into the community. And we take those obligations very seriously, and unfortunately, because of not this shelter moving into downtown, but because of 3 years of very difficult economic times, the businesses feel that this particular move into the downtown is the straw, the final straw, the thing that they will push them over the edge. And it is not about, to me or to them, that haves versus have-nots. I support Councilor Broderick's motion. We actually, as a business community, have all already began meeting to discuss ways, number 14, to discuss ways to get this message to the church, to see if they would be willing to understand our needs and our obligations. And I am concerned that this motion, which I understand the intent of it, but I'm concerned that this motion will hinder any possible discussion where we can be really honest and demonstrate to them that need comes in many forms. And for now, at this moment in our economy, the business owners really need some relief, so that in the future we can continue to keep our employees employed, pay our debts, and eventually hire the staff, the employees who will come out of these shelters. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilman Donza?
Just to reiterate that, I mean, the information I'd like to get is the police activity related to Living Waters and their current facility. If there's any information, that's not on a website anywhere. I can always look at the website, see what their current program is, what they plan to do, what their mission is, but I'd like to know what history we've had with them as far as police action.
Thank you.
And it could make the case for the motion, I don't know.
Thank you. Anyone else on the motion? Roll call.
Mayor Milanazzo?
Yes.
Councilor Murphy?
Present.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Dakota?
Present.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça?
No.
Councilor Mercier?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 nay, 2 present.
6 yeas, 2 present, 1 nay. Motion passes. Next motion by Councilor Elliott. Motion, City Council requests the city manager enforce zoning and parking restrictions at 8 Kirk Street and provide report on proposed expansion of homeless services at the same location. Second by Councilor Broderick.
I probably need to clarify this motion a little bit, but I got a complaint that currently at that location, there are parking violations. People are parking all over the place. There's ruts, there's mud, they're parking on the sidewalks. So, and I guess the second part of it, of that motion is, it shouldn't say enforce, but it should request a report on the current zoning, and would this be a restricted or conforming use? I did go on the website and it's zoned DMU. I wasn't sure if the addition of this particular service at St. Anne's would be in compliance with the existing zoning. I didn't think to ask Mr. Bakey that when he was here, but I'm sure Mr. Manager may know
Mr.
or
Manager.
looking into it.
I think we'll look into the zoning issue. I think that there are issues regarding whether this zoning can actually be enforced against this type of use, but we'll check on that. The issue, I guess, a question for the council regarding the parking. The sense I got in reading this was that you're talking about on-street parking issues, but then you mentioned something about the mud. I think you said the mud. Are you talking about off-site parking?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So if you could just look into it, it's a complaint. I should have phrased it a little bit more clearly, but
That's
I
okay,
was,
as long as I understand.
it was a little bit, I was trying to get the motion, and so apparently there's some parking violations currently at the
On the site?
Yes,
Right.
correct.
Okay.
Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Thank you. The next motion by Councilor Broderick. Motion, City Council requests the city manager meet with downtown businesses and St. Anne's Church to explore possibility of working out a plan for use of space other than services for the homeless. Did you want to, second by Councilor Coffin, did you want to amend that to include the Downtown Neighborhood Association as well?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. As amended, Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Essentially, we took a vote 2 motions ago, and I think that it's clear people downtown are concerned, nervous about the potential for this. The church has been down there for long before Councilor Caulfield was here.
1822.
Yeah, not much longer.
And and there's been business down there as well. And you know, it's a small community, and they've all worked well together in the past. And sometimes it's a matter of getting folks together. Councilor Dakota said it well earlier, that it may be a situation of a disconnect in that the church, the leaders of the church don't necessarily understand the concerns of the business people. It may be, for the church, it may be a combination, or maybe a mission issue, or a financial issue, or a combination thereof. And there may be something that when folks get together and have discussions about this in ways that, that something different may be worked out to help fill the needs of the church, and maybe further the mission, but in maybe a different area. When folks get together and little good things happen, and it can't hurt to try and initiate a discussion how to solve people's needs rather than necessarily butt heads and dig our heels in. So that's the gist of the motion.
Thank you, Councilor Broderick. Anyone else on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Next motion by Councilor Mendonça. Motion, City Council requests the city manager have the traffic engineer determine if Riverwalk Way could be made a no parking area on one or both sides between Lawrence Drive and Perkins Street. Second by Councilor Dakota. Councilor Mendonça.
Actually, it's somewhat of a moot point, but I was at the Acre Neighborhood meeting, the action meeting is what they call themselves, and this was one of the complaints, is that now the university has implemented a $300 per year parking fee, that some students are avoiding it, I was told, by parking in this area. To the point that when they park on both sides, if they don't park close to the curve, it makes it hard to get by. They were concerned about emergency vehicles or just themselves getting out. Actually, at the public hearing we had this evening, it actually implemented no parking on the west side of Riverwalk Way, which is what I was asking for. We could expand that by, after the implementation of this, maybe there have been so many changes in that area to have the engineer just look at the traffic pattern in general in the area bounded by the arena, the ballpark, and Father Morissette in the river, so in that area. But the main issue itself has been addressed by quarterly traffic regulations.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you. Do we need to take action on the motion, or it's the maker of the motion?
I think that's just a voice vote and go forward, but it's been addressed, so I thank
Okay.
the traffic engineer for getting this done in advance.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Next motion by Councilor Murphy. Motion, City Council requests the city manager reconsider network of transit overlay districts with adjusted minimum parking requirements to encourage neighborhood, business, or affordable housing development with thorough transportation demand management plans. Second by Councilor Broderick. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was a part of an earlier motion from last year, but a couple of things have changed, or hopefully will change. We did receive in our packets this week a response to that motion. And one of the problems of establishing a transit overlay district is, of course, if you don't have any fixed stops, as the LRTA didn't at the time, but hopefully will in the next several months. It was noted in the report that 10 locations are budgeted for to have bus shelters, and several of those locations have what meets the criteria set by the state of a place of transit-oriented development, basically a half-mile radius around a fixed bus route, fixed stop that has 2 or more bus routes. And so that's one of the things that's changed. And then the addition of this notion of having an alternative transportation demand management plans, so that you have a particular development, say, that in reducing the parking requirements, they also make available a kind of infrastructure that supports alternative transportation, whether it be through pedestrian or bike or otherwise. And so to look at ways of encouraging through that, I think some business development or more affordable housing development where you're not as reliant, if you're a resident, on more extensive transportation, because you don't have the ability to pay for a car or whatever. So you're now better able, I think, to use the public transit system.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Last motion of the evening by Councilor Murphy. Motion, City Council requests the city manager provide data on variances granted by the zoning board. Second by Councilor Mercia. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you. This is something that's several people have talked to me about, and of course, if you can make all the zoning ordinance changes you'd like, but if you're continually issuing variances, then it defeats the purpose of that ordinance. I do know that in our strategic goals and objectives, there was some mention of working toward, really making sure that the zoning code is upheld by reducing the number of variances issued. And so if we could get a report to see how we're progressing in that way, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Anything else? Motion to adjourn by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Martin. All those in favor? We stand adjourned. Thank you.